Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Daniel Moyer. I'm a sales support trainer here at Briggs Stratton Energy Solutions. With me today is Nathan Heston. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're in, Nathan.
Good morning, Daniel, and good morning, good day to all of you out there. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, today what we have is we're going to be talking a little bit about how generators and energy storage systems can complement each other rather than compete with each other. We have a few more people trickling in right now, and once the numbers stabilize, we'll get started. Really quickly, as we're doing that, waiting for that, this is a NABCEP accredited class. You can earn up to 1 hour, or you're going to get 1 hour of continuing education credit through NABCEP. At the end of this talk, I'm going to have my email is going to pop up. Go ahead and email us, and then we'll go ahead and check the logs and make sure you attended, and we'll go ahead and email you your certificate. Additionally, we have a Q&A functionality on this webinar. So at the top of your screen or the bottom of the screen, you might see a Q&A button, and that's where you're going to go ahead and put in any questions you may have, any comments you may have, and get us excited about what your project is, perhaps. Nathan's going to be kind of monitoring that chat, and we'll kind of chime in during the talk if we have a good opportunity to do that. Otherwise, we're going to take a look at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Daniel Moyer, sales support trainer here at Briggs Stratton Energy Solutions, and with me today is Nathan Heston. We're going to kind of run through some of these, introduce ourselves, the market drivers, the growth. Again, the main focus really is about battery storage and generators combining together, how and why we combine them together. Take a little bit quick look at those portable generators, and then finally look at some layouts. We've had an amazing opportunity to leverage our Power Academy. If anybody hasn't been on there, I would encourage you to go to this URL. The Power Academy is available to all. There's in-person classes, like physically come out and see us talk live. We have travel trailer trainings where we take energy storage batteries, we take generators, and we'll come to sites throughout the United States and present some of these topics on all-day courses. E-learning, Power Academy live virtual courses like you're here today. The e-learning courses are great because that allows you to go at a self-paced. Next one after this talk is going to be going back to the old school fundamentals. We're doing a battery chemistry 101. That's going to be January 30th. We'll take a look at that.
So good point,
yes.
Daniel. I do want to point out to everybody that Power Academy account is free. You can sign up for that and interact with learning content there for free. So do encourage people to check out the Briggs Stratton Power Academy.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. Please put it in the chat. If you are going to be at NABCEP, put it into the chat. I will make sure you get a free hat, a free t-shirt if you come by our booth at NABCEP and tell them you saw us here on this talk. I'll make sure I get you something, at least a pen or something, right? Whatever we have at the booth, or maybe all three. It's going to be coming up in Raleigh in March, maybe about a little bit about a month from now. Sue is who runs that. That's her email there if you have any questions. Additionally, that QR code right there, that QR link, will take you to the registration page for NABCEP. I'm going to be doing a great talk, Off-Grid Living with Simplified Batteries, on Tuesday. We're going to talk about how we size systems, how we design systems, and some considerations when we're choosing appliances for our homes when we go off-grid. Nathan, what talk are you going to be doing?
I'm going to be talking about the SolarArc 15K and Simplified batteries, a training that I delivered last week. It's now NABCEP approved, and so you can get NABCEP credits for attending this talk in the future. Additionally, we will be releasing more information about our 6.6 battery as those specs and the testing finalizes, a battery which is going to be released here in April.
Yeah, so we were just at Intersolar last week. If anybody was at Intersolar, go ahead and put it in the chat. Let us know you were there. And if you had a chance to come see that new 6.6 battery, I have a couple slides coming up where we're going to dive into that really quickly. So what are the benefits of combining battery storage and a generator together? As I kind of hinted at a minute ago, when we were off-grid, and really in a lot of ways, the photovoltaic industry and battery industry got its start in the off-grid market. And a lot of times in off-grid markets, off-grid installs, we would always combine a generator. Why? Because if I have to size a photovoltaic system to get you through the dead of winter, it's going to be way oversized in summer. And you're probably going to spend more money on that solar array, especially back in off-grid days when solar was really expensive, than you might otherwise need. We would combine a generator in off-grid systems and allow you to charge up those batteries when it was cloudy out, when it was dark out. Well, there's an opportunity now really to add energy storage and generators together in on-grid applications. We're going to talk a little bit about why. One of them is you can do is peak shaving. You can actually use either the generator or the energy storage system in some of these applications to participate in demand response programs. You get that increased energy resilience. They work together, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, is that the inverter there on the right-hand side knows the state of charge of the batteries. And as the state of charge of the batteries begins to drop to a certain level, we can send a 2-wire signal to start up that generator, run the generator at its most fuel efficient run point, charge up the batteries and shut the generator off, saving fuel, saving runtime, saving maintenance on that generator. It's really a great way to increase the resiliency if you have those frequent or prolonged energy outages. And it gets you an extra level of dependency. We're one of—
And so Daniel, just
yeah.
one quick note. I mean, you're showing in the previous slide there, you're showing all these reasons that we can do all these things that we can do by adding generators and batteries together. I just note that large systems, they're doing this as well, right? There's a movement in the telecom industry to have what are called hybrid generators, in which they use that generator to charge up those batteries when needed, but then turn that generator off sooner. You've, of course, shown with our Briggs Stratton inverter there, but we also want to point out that we do have this long-term compatibility with SolArcs, and any batteries we release, we make sure it communicates well with SolArc. And so you can do this with the Briggs Stratton inverter, with any of those SolArc inverters as well.
Yeah, and I would even argue we make other batteries, our Phi battery, which is still inverter agnostic, a MagnaSign or a Schneider, or there's many other inverters that have automatic generator start. A lot of times it's a separate module. Our SolArc, our inverter has the 2-wire signal to start the automatic generator start kind of built into the inverter. And also you said a kind of a really cool word there a second ago, Nathan. You called it a hybrid. And I think that's a great way when we're talking to our homeowners to have them think about how these systems work. A lot of people understand how a hybrid car works, right? You have a battery and you have an engine, and you can use the generator or the engine to kind of provide the oomph to drive your car up a hill, or when the battery is low, and then shut the engine or the generator off and run on the batteries. So in a lot of ways, I think I see a lot of parallels between a hybrid car and what we're trying to accomplish here. Briggs Stratton is one of only 2 companies in the entire country that makes both energy storage systems and generators. We're experts in both, and we can provide that expertise, that tech support, that sales support to provide you that both one completely solutions provider. We make these generators in the United States. I've actually visited the factories. We make the engines and the generators here in the United States. We additionally assemble the batteries here in the United States, and we have a very proud history of that, of making these batteries in Oxnard, California. I got some slides coming up on that a little bit later, but that allows us to qualify for the SGIP, Self-Generation Incentive Program, here in California. And there's possibility to get some of that domestic content adders. So we'll look into that a little bit here in a minute. It's really exciting because making them here in the United States allows us a high level of quality control and allows us to have some rapid tech support or R&D capabilities as we're moving forward. Briggs Stratton has been around for 115 years. And last week when I was at Intersolar down in San Diego, again, put it in the chat if anybody was there, or the Q&A. As I was walking around that conference hall, there was a lot of new people in the game. We're one of the only few people that have been around longer than our warranty period has been, right? So you've been around 1 year, yet you're offering a 10-year warranty. How do I know you're still going to be around? Another thing Briggs Stratton brings to the table is its name brand. I barely recognize half the names in the conference hall this year, but your average homeowner is going to recognize that Briggs and Stratton logo, probably because they've had a lawnmower at some point in their past. But we have a huge resource and capabilities that we bring to that. We're going to just kind of quickly run through this, and we're going to dive into the meat of the subject. But what's driving this market? Really, it's home as a haven. This kind of came out of the pandemic. A lot of people are working from home, school from home, a lot of retirees from home, and they want dependable, reliable power for their home. That's what either a generator or an energy storage system is going to give you. Better if you were able to combine both of them. Existing infrastructure needs investment. And I heard about this again is down in PSPSs, or public safety power shutoffs. What I mean by this is in high wind events, they're shutting these power distribution networks off to prevent wildfires. These utility companies are being sued by communities that burned down during wildfires that were caused by power lines that were swaying in high wind events. So the power companies aren't taking any chances. They don't want to have any liability, and they're simply shutting down the distribution networks to prevent any future wildfires. And so what that is leaving people out of power for perhaps days on end. And one of the old founders of Simplified Power, Catherine von Berg, said, there's nothing safe about why do they use the word safe in a public safety power shutoff, right? You're cutting off power to millions of people, perhaps. So that's one way is they're currently burying those electrical lines, but they're still catching up on it. And additionally, as we start to electrify our transportation network and our heating of our homes through heat pumps, we're really going to need distributed assets to kind of help the grid along. Climate-related disasters, electrification of everything, and also growth of clean energy policies is really driving this market. It's really exciting with the IRA now that you can do a 30% tax credit on just the storage alone. Used to be that you would have to combine photovoltaics and storage together in order to qualify for that 30% tax credit. Well, now you don't have to do photovoltaics. You can do just a battery, take that 30% tax credit. Additionally, there's opportunities now with the 30% direct cash payment to nonprofits. So if there's a nonprofit or a house of worship that doesn't necessarily pay taxes, they can now leverage that direct cash payment and get a system installed while being competitive. A lot of people have gone solar and they want to add storage now. We can AC couple existing solar systems onto our inverter. Backup power definitely is what's going to have to be kind of the focus of a lot of conversations, especially here in California as we progress to a new net energy metering 3.0 policy, where you're not going to get anything if you send it back to the grid. You have to store it in your batteries during the day and then discharge it at night to kind of save that money. But you're still, the payback period is now increased because of that adding a battery system. So make sure we focus our conversations on backup power. Utility bill savings is still possible. Off-grid, I believe, is still, and that's why I'm excited about giving my talk at NABCEP out there in Raleigh coming up, is we're one of the few companies that still warranties our products for off-grid use. And by having a DC coupled system, we're able to be very efficient at that and really provide an off-grid solution. That's why we're here today, is generator optimization. So we'll get into that as well.
So Daniel, really quickly, you mentioned that the payback period has extended for solar systems because of the reduced feedback rates, at least here in California. But is the payback argument still the same for battery systems? I mean, essentially, with a battery system, you can use your own energy, right? You can self-consume, as we say. How does the NEM 3.0 change in California affect payback with batteries?
Yeah, so you've always had if you think about NEM 1.0 or NEM 2.0, that was the reason the solar industry, in a way, is where it's at today. It was responsible for a rapid growth of solar installations. The idea that you could use the grid as your battery, right? You would have solar on your home. You get a 1-to-1 credit for every kilowatt hour you send back to the grid. You get a kilowatt hour credit that you could use at nighttime or in the winter. So kind of the the utilities argument, and there is, I believe, some truth to this, is that in the summer during the day in California, the price of electricity was essentially going negative. Now, that's not ignoring some of the facts that we could say transmit some to Oregon, or we could store it. But back to your question is, essentially, with now that we're under NEM 3.0, we don't have that one-to-one credit. So now when you send a kilowatt hour back to the grid, you're getting net billing tariff or whatever the avoided cost offset would be. So you're getting pennies, less than maybe a penny per kilowatt hour that you're sending to the grid. Now you still need to consume power at night, right? Because the solar is not, there's no sun up at night. And now you're having to buy power at 20, 30, 40 cents a kilowatt hour. So you're having to use a battery to store that power. So the payback period in a way has gone up because it was very favorable. You didn't need a battery on your home, especially if you didn't have a lot of outages. And you could see a payback period of 5 or 8 years. Now what we have to do is we have to not only pair a solar, but also storage. Well, that battery, the materials cost extra, and the installation costs more. So overall, the system is more expensive. So that means your payback period is still doable, maybe 12 years before the system ages out. But the payback period is definitely increased. Nathan, did that answer your question, or did you have another
It
comment
did,
for
and
us?
one of the things I like to point out to customers is there is no payback period for generators, right? It's you're buying a product, and when you use that product, you're getting the value out of the product, but it doesn't pay for itself. When you start coupling generators with batteries, which is the subject of the conversation today, you can start to pay back your investment in that you are generating electricity at essentially no cost if you have solar, and you're using that, or you're making your generator operate more efficiently. And so you're reducing the cost of actually using the generator to generate power by adding batteries. Now, those payback times are longer, especially with having generators on a system. But a generator, as Daniel's going to point out on the slide he's got up, has a lot of benefits, like essentially very long run times in climate events, for instance, where you might have a storm that takes out other power systems for a long time, or downtimes where you have too much rain and cloudy weather to really get much from your solar, especially in the winter when your days are short. So Daniel's going to get into those things. Daniel, I know you want to keep moving. You want to get through content and get into the more technical specifications. But I did want to mention that Dan has made a comment here. Will you show what app functionalities you have implemented to let the system owner control energy flow in an automated fashion, like charging batteries at full throttle generator, then turning off the generator, or if solar is insufficient for charging all of this in an off-grid, grid-down situation, or forced battery use, like time of use, I think he's referring to here, between 4 and 9 p.m. for PGE. So just wanted to keep those topics in your mind, the time of use settings on both the Solarc and the Briggs Stratton inverter, as well as the automatic shutoffs controls that you have on both of those inverters as well. So we have those functionalities. Yeah. Just wanted you to hit on them today.
Yeah, and we'll definitely hit a little bit on that when we talk a little bit about Energy Track. And really quickly before we get in, and I've had this question before, maybe you two have, Nathan, is that at what price point does it actually make sense to run a generator to charge a battery when we're not having to buy power from the grid, right? So think about how much propane per hour the generator uses, and what is that cost of per gallon of propane, and what's the maintenance, the runtime wear on the generator. And so with the utility prices going up, if you have solar, the batteries, the more that our utility prices increase, we're going to see that. It would have to get, from what I remember doing kind of back of the napkin calculations, grid power has to get pretty expensive before it actually makes sense to be your own power plant. But
absolutely. Well, from a generator side, yes.
From a generator side, right? Solar, you can see that. Pros of generators: unlimited fuel, right? You probably have natural gas. A lot of people have natural gas coming to their house. That's an unlimited fuel source if you think about it. A lot of times people have 500 or 1,000-gallon propane tanks sitting in the backyard. That's a kind of a relatively unlimited power supply or unlimited fuel supply. I do recognize that there may be it may be hard for a propane truck to get to you during a disaster, but you got a pretty big tank. Whole home backup is usually how we position a generator. Lower upfront costs. Generators usually a little bit cheaper to install. Nighttime cloudy operation versus solar installation. What I mean by that is you may have a customer that simply lives in the forest, lives in the trees, and just doesn't have any solar insulation access available at that site. That may be an opportunity to do just a generator and a battery system and no solar. What I mean by nighttime cloudy operation is that you may have all the sun, open skies in the world at your site, but if it's nighttime or it's cloudy, your solar is not working, you gotta want to use that generator. Safety, and what I mean by that is carbon monoxide poisoning. And there was some history with one of our competitors, and it wasn't our competitor's fault, it was installers' fault that are installing these generators too close to openings in the home, whether it be a dryer vent, a window, a soffit vent, and you can have that carbon monoxide poisoning. Fuel costs, just like our gas for our cars, fuel is always going up for natural gas as well. Maintenance, installation location, you have to kind of be careful where you install generators, not too close to the lot line, just far enough away from the house. They're noisy, and you got to run gas lines. Energy storage, right? It's eco-friendly, potentially safer. What I mean by that is we leverage a lithium iron phosphate, one of the safest of the battery chemistries. If you're leveraging something different like a cobalt-based chemistry, you could potentially make with a thermal runaway event, some less safe installations. You can save money, right? So like Nathan had hinted at earlier, is that we can program our energy storage systems to either charge or discharge during specific times to buy cheap, buy low, sell high, and that helps us save money. Eligible for that 30% tax credit, like I mentioned, and faster transfer time. And this is something I didn't realize is how important this can be to people. If you have a generator, power goes out, the generator the transfer switch usually is going to transfer you off of grid power. It's going to take 30 seconds for that generator to start up and transfer you over to generator. By that time, all of the clocks in your house have reset. All of your routers, your modems have all reset and all have to reboot. With a energy storage system like our inverter or a solar inverter, it's usually like a 5 to 8 millisecond transfer time. So it transfers so quick that you barely see the lights flicker and you don't have to go around and reset all your clocks. And I thought that's not a big deal, but apparently it is to some people, and it's quiet. More costs up front. It's probably only going to do critical load backup. It's potentially a more complex warranty. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people have complex battery warranties, a certain amount of cycles, certain amount of throughput, a certain percent depth of discharge. And as I'm going to get to here in a minute, we have a much simpler warranty, and you're really limited by power and energy. What I mean by energy is really how much fuel is in the tank, right? Think of the batteries as your fuel tank, and that's how many kilowatt hours that you would have in the tank. And power is really how fast the power can be, or energy can be used, right? We think of that in kilowatts. And a lot of generator installers don't think about the energy side, because remember I said that you have unlimited fuel. So you're not really thinking about what's in the tank, right? Because I have a natural gas line coming into my house and it's unlimited. They do think about power, right? Is it a 13, 20, 26K generator? When we have energy storage, we need to think about both. So make sure you understand and you explain it to your homeowners the difference between energy, which is power over time in kilowatt hours, and power, which is essentially how much watts you can get at any instantaneous moment. And that's important when we start to talk about running sump pumps, well pumps, sewage lifter pumps as well. And a lot of times people want backup, not because they want to play video games or whatever, or even their fridge. They just want to be able to go to the bathroom, and if they have a sewer booster pump, they're not going to be able to use the toilet. So priorities here, people. On the left is how we usually position a generator, right? We do a whole home backup. We have grid, meter can, and usually there might be also a breaker here. We have our whole home transfer. This is probably 200 or 100 amp transfer panel. And when normal grid's up, power is going to flow through the can, through the transfer switch, right into your home's loads. If power goes out, The transfer switch is going to transfer. It's going to start up this generator. Generator is going to start, and now we're flowing power like this. In an energy storage system, and not to say that we can't do a whole home backup, especially if we use our SolarArc 15K with that 200 amp pass through, we absolutely can do whole home backup. But if we're going to do a partial home backup, perhaps with our 6K inverter, perhaps with a SolarArc 12K or an 8K, same idea. Grid, meter can, non-backed up loads, and then the transfer switch itself is built into the inverter. And then we're going to disconnect ourselves from grid if power goes out, and then we're going to power backed up loads on our backed up loads panel.
Daniel, can you go back to that slide?
Yeah.
I like this slide, but I want to point out for people that use that's the SolarArc options, right? With the 15K on the left side of the diagram, right? The SolarArc 15K can essentially act as your transfer switch.
Yeah, that could replace this right here.
Exactly. So you're able to bring in, I believe it's a 19.2 kilowatts of power from your generator through the SolarArc 15K. You can pass through that 200 amps of service directly through the 15K and power the whole home. And so we are showing an inverter option on the right for a smaller inverter, as Daniel mentioned, like the Briggs 6K or the SolarArc 8K or 12K. But essentially the 15K can operate like the transfer switch and be that battery backup on the left side of the screen. So we might add a slide in the future showing how that 15K works, especially since our new battery is designed around being well positioned with the 15K.
Yeah, and Nathan, I believe we do have a slide coming up at the end as we run through some of our diagrams.
Great.
We're already halfway through the hour, everybody, so I'm going to go pretty quick through the products. Phi and Amplify are our legacy batteries. These are inverter agnostic batteries. The Phi does not have closed loop comms, so it's a perfect match with a lot of the older existing equipment, perhaps a lead acid battery replacement. That Amplify battery does have closed loop comms, so it can talk very well to a SolarArc products, and it can also talk to our inverter as well. These batteries are indoor rated, so if you're going to use these batteries, you got to put them in one of our battery cabinet if you're going to put them outside. Boss cabinet, as you see there, and additionally our access cabinet. I'll show you a picture of what that looks like in the as we open it up. Here's the 6.6, right? Really excited. We announced this at the Intersolar show last week. It's a stacking battery, and a lot of people have stacking batteries. What makes ours really unique, though, is a lot of people have stacking batteries, but as soon as you open up those side panels, there's still all these connections. Ours is a true stacking where not only the comms, but also the power all stacked together at really quick install time. Our inverter's right there in the middle, a 6K inverter, and then our Energy Track app is on the right. And I think that's going to be a great opportunity to talk a little bit about how we can control these systems and how important software is becoming in our industry to control at what state of charge does the generator turn on, and what state of charge does the generator turn off?
So Daniel,
yes, go ahead, Nathan.
Great points there. I do want to point out to people that are looking at that battery on the left, it's 6.6 kilowatt hour blocks, and there are 3 of those blocks there. So that's actually 19.8 kilowatt hours here.
Great point.
In a single stack. So there's a lot of energy storage there.
Yeah, and if you're interested in learning more about this or getting on the update list, scan this QR code that you see on your screen. There's potential we'll send you out some swag, so look at it. But great point, Nathan. Each one of those is 6.6 kilowatt hours that stack up. Really, it's very power dense. You get that quick install. And we've kind of refreshed the inverter look. You probably noticed in my slide, I didn't have a chance to update all the different inverter pics. But this is what the inverter is going to look like going forward. And really, we've simplified not only the power, but also the networking cable as well. Scan that QR code and get on the list for updates as we start to release this. Again, back to software topic, software is really going to drive innovation in our industry. Not only from, I'm thinking of the battery management systems that's in batteries. I know, Nathan, you do an entire hour talk, or maybe it's an hour and a half talk on just the computers and the software inside the batteries. But think about how the homeowner interacts, the installer interacts with these energy storage systems is through an app. We have a great IT department out at our headquarters in Milwaukee at Briggs Stratton that's working on these apps, always rolling out new features, making it more streamlined as well. We do house all of this data in the United States on servers owned by Briggs Stratton. So your installers data is safe, as so is your homeowners as well. And Nathan, if we want to come back to any of those questions that Dan had about controlling software, please prompt me or please interrupt me at any time.
Sure.
Phi, already talked about that. It's the non-communicating battery. Great for some old pieces of equipment like a Magna sign, right? Or an old Schneider inverter where you don't have closed loop comms. It's great. Amplify in the middle. And additionally, we still have our outdoor rated 4.98 battery. We can take one of these access systems. It's a Boss 12 cabinet, essentially, where we took out 6 batteries. We put an inverter up top. And we have 6 batteries down at the bottom. We can either put our 6K inverter in here, or we can put the Solar 12K inverter in here as well.
And point out, Daniel, that that's a UL 9540 certified inverter as well, right? This has gone through all of the testing. Now, as a battery company that manufactures out here in California, we are one of the most heavily safety tested batteries on the market in the US. And this has those appropriate certifications. If you're in a jurisdiction with picky inspectors or with where this is simply required. Right?
I would say, I would even argue if you have a customer, you know, when we're sitting down at the kitchen table proposing these systems, is have safety, you know, do those open-ended questions at the beginning of your presentation. Ask what's important. And is it looks? Is it cost? Is it performance? Is it warranty? Is it safety? And if they say safety, definitely mention the 9540A. We have this safety third-party safety test report published on our website, and we don't hide it, right? We want to promote it, and feel free to share that. It truly shows just how safe our energy storage systems are. We have other trainings where we spend more time going in depth on those.
And those are very simple systems to install, essentially plug and play, right? Which is one of the advantages. And those can come with Schneider inverters in there if you prefer the Schneider inverter. Those can come with the Solarc inverters inside as well.
What's not so simple is high voltage, but we try to make it simple. I was excited at Intersolar to see how much talk there is around high voltage solutions. We do make a high voltage battery. It's 4.3 kilowatt hours. It can either be 24 or 48 volts, and they're stacked in series, unlike our other batteries, which are all in parallel, into these server racks. And then these server racks kind of get paired together, and then they end up going into containers for high voltage solutions. We can actually work with the new Solarc 60K and the new Solarc 30K as well. Temperature considerations is always important. Just understand that lithium-ion batteries cannot be charged in cold weather applications. And if they are, we have to charge them at a slower rate to use the internal resistance of the battery to kind of warm them up. Nathan, did you hear about how people were trying to charge their Teslas in cold weather applications, or in New York, was it right?
No, I believe this was in Chicago, but essentially, I mean, there's a portion of my talk that I dedicate to this. It's hard to charge batteries in cold weather. And additionally, you know, one of these problems is the batteries are actually charged. It's just the energy is not available until the battery is heated up. So you might have a battery that has 40% state of charge, but it's telling you that your estimated range is low. As soon as that battery warms up, that range can increase. Additionally, you know, these people that had these problems charging their batteries, if they simply would have driven their cars around for a little while and gotten that battery to pre-condition, they wouldn't have had these issues. However, we do note that many of our competitors do not allow charging down below 0 degrees Celsius. And on our communicating batteries, we can actually charge slowly below those values. And charging slowly at those values at very safe rates warms the battery up and allows us to charge it at faster rates as that battery warms up.
Yeah, that's a great point, because a communicating battery can tell the inverter its temperature and tell that inverter to slow down its charge rate. So that was a good thing. Had the people just drove around the block a couple times, they would have been able to charge their car. You're getting a lot of info at this talk. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Keep the questions coming as we go through this talk at kind of the bottom half of the inning. Warranty is important. especially as we're starting to think about NEM 3.0, we're asking these energy storage batteries to charge and discharge themselves every day, right? These batteries aren't just sitting there waiting for an outage anymore. They're participating in supporting the grid. They're participating in keeping you saving money from having to buy high, energy prices into the evening. So having a very important warranty is really there. And our Amplify and our Simplify batteries, the communicating batteries, we have a 15-year warranty, unlimited cycles, 100% depth of discharge with no throughput clause. Our new 6.6 battery, I believe, is going to have a 10-year warranty, and the 5 battery has a 10-year warranty. That may be changing, so stay tuned. Point is that we're a company that's been around longer than our warranty battery has been around. Simplified Power has been around over 15 years now. So we're not going anywhere, and we're not going to be leaving you guys high and dry. We could say whatever warranty we want, but if the company isn't around, how are we going to support that? And that brings up a good point. As I was talking to some people at InterSolar, is not only is having a strong manufacturer warranty important, but having reliable, dependable installers like you doing these systems is also just as important, because if you have a homeowner that buys, say, our product or whatever product, and something goes wrong, the first person they're going to call is you, the installer. And if you're not around, if you went out of business, then they're kind of left high and dry. And I see a lot of orphan systems out there in the market. So it's just as crucial for us to stand behind our warranties as it is for you, the installer, to make sure that you're charging the appropriate amount. Don't go too low on your pricing, because you need to be able to reinvest in your installation business and keep your doors open so you're there to help support the customers. Being able to charge and discharge the batteries is quick. And how this relates to our topic today, which is combining batteries and generators, is that if you have a fast C rate, right, which is the rate at which you can charge or discharge the battery quickly, allows you to run the generator for a shorter period of time. If we had old lead acid batteries, which maybe had a C over 20 or a C over 10, or if you're really hammering the batteries a C over 5, you'd have to run the generator for 5 hours, 10 hours, potentially 20 hours to fully charge that bank. When we have a battery like ours that can charge within 2 hours, we run the generator for 2 hours to fully charge that battery bank, assuming that you have an inverter capable of pushing that much power into a given size of a battery bank. Easy to scale, easy to expand, so we can scale up our systems to meet the system size that you need. And we can always come back and add batteries later, usually no more than 2 to 3 years down the road. If you do add batteries, the new batteries that you add have the equivalent of the warranty period that the existing batteries have. One thing that I kind of, as I was researching this, is they're called standby generators. So a standby generator is a generator that's warranted and approved to just be there for standby applications. If you're a grid-tied location, the grid goes out and the standby generator comes on. So we do offer non-standby, it's called non-emergency generators, and these are available on our 18, 22, and 26K generators. They are actually approved. There's a little sticker from the EPA on the generator. That's what's being called out in that little green kind of circle there, is that it's approved for off-grid applications. And that's really exciting. Like I mentioned earlier, is we approve these systems for off-grid. The warranty just changed a little bit. It goes from unlimited runtime to a certain number of 1,000-hour runtime on generators used in that application. But it can also be used for demand or co-op partnerships. And please put it into the chat or the Q&A if you have participated, or if you're in an area that does this, right? The utility or the energy co-op will essentially, I believe, tell your meter to shut down, and then that all the generator sees is a lost grid. It'll start the generator up and take your home off of the grid, the demand on the grid, so that you're kind of being compensated financially for being off the grid and helping ease the burden that the grid is being put upon. Combining generators has always been a topic for off-grid, but really now that we can be a company that can offer both generators and energy storage systems, I see this happening more and more on grid applications. And it used to be that we would have a Magna sign with an automatic generator start, a Briggs Stratton generator, simplified batteries, all these different parts and pieces. Now it can be all under one roof, all under Briggs Stratton Energy Solutions with one tech support call, one warranty, and frankly, one business development manager or one salesperson can offer all of these. Batteries are only going to last as long as they have power in them. What we can do is we can use the generator to charge up those batteries. As I mentioned earlier, I don't see a propane truck getting down this road here. So we want to conserve the propane that we do have in the tank, or perhaps the natural gas lines have ruptured or frozen. You can't get that natural gas. So we're being able to offer all of them. Again, that's kind of the focus point of this talk is we are experts in both. And we have sales application engineers that can talk you through both of these systems. One thing is you realize these standby generators, when they're running, you got a 26K generator, power is out, generator started, transfer switch transferred, and the generator's not running at 26K. It's probably running close to maybe 2, 3, 4, 5,000 watts. So the generator's kind of just, it's not really running at its most fuel efficient fuel point, right? We want to get that generator up to a more fuel efficient point, like a 70% load, and then shut that generator off. And I'm going to go back to your kind of point, Nathan, is that whenever I'm driving my hybrid car, like a Toyota hybrid, and I'm at a stop sign and maybe the battery's kind of going low, I hear that engine kick on. And I hear that, I don't hear that engine kick on in the hybrid car kind of idling. I kind of hear it revving, right? Because I hear it revving, trying to charge up that battery, and then it's going to shut that generator or the engine off in that example. Same idea.
That's a great point,
Yeah.
Daniel. And it's worth pointing out that when your generator kicks on to charge the batteries, there's two things that generator is doing. One, it's charging the batteries, and two, it's powering loads. Right. So if you're setting up your generator and you're setting those charge rates on those batteries, keep in mind, if you're expecting to be powering, let's say 5 kW of loads from a 10K generator, and you only have another 5 kW to play with, make sure you don't set that battery charging rate to too fast. So Daniel mentioned that our batteries can charge as quickly as in 2 hours. Our new battery, the 6.6, will be able to charge in less than an hour and 15 minutes. But make sure that you don't overtax that generator with how much energy you're pulling off of it. So it's an important consideration.
Yeah. And I think I have a slide coming up here too, is the opposite, right? So if you have a 26K generator and maybe we're using a SolarArc 8K, well, the SolarArc 8K isn't going to be able to take in 26K from a generator. So what you've done is oversized the generator. It'd be more appropriate to size this 13K generator that you see on the screen. So we're actually not oversizing the generator. An 8K is only going to be able to pull in a given amount. So great points, Nathan. Thank you so much. What we're seeing here is kind of a 3-line diagram. What are we looking at? We're looking at our inverter. We have a bidirectional grid port that's going to disconnect itself from grid if grid goes down. That's feeding our non-backed up loads. We have a load out port that's feeding our backed up loads panel, and we have a generator in port. And that's going to allow us to do a 2-wire signal to start up that generator, and then use the generator power to not only charge the batteries, but also take over some of the existing loads as well. I do know in some of the SolarArc applications, this gen port can actually be a smart load out as well. And additionally, with both our inverter and the SolarArc inverter, this could be an AC coupled solar in port as well. So if we're going to have a generator and we're going to have AC coupled solar, we're going to want to think about adding either interlocking breakers or some sort of manual transfer switch. So we're not getting the solar microinverters, for example, thinking that the generator is grid and then start to the solar AC solar backfeeding the generator.
Hey, Daniel, I got
go ahead.
a question that came in. Maybe I missed it. Can you use any generator or only a specific model/brand?
So on our systems, and I'm going to kind of back up. There are 110 or 120 volt inverters out there, and you could potentially do that. But for our inverter, and I believe for SolarArc, it has to be a 240-volt inverter. And I do have a slide coming up on that. And if it's going to be the 2-wire signal to start, it has to be approved for unintended operations. So I do have a slide coming up on using portable generators, which is possible. But really, you have to make sure that it's going to be the 60 hertz, and it's going to match the voltage range of whatever inverter you're using. Nathan, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, just our warranty does not require that you use a Briggs Stratton generator. We highly recommend our generators, and even many of the generators on the market that are not Briggs Stratton labeled might have a Briggs Stratton engine powering them, right? But you can use other generators, as Daniel is going to get into. So you can use other generators, and it does not void your inverter or your battery warranty. But we have had instances where lower quality signals get rejected by the inverter. So those inverters do expect a good quality signal to be coming in. That means that frequency has to be in the right range. And as you load your generators heavily, that frequency drops, as you know. So you have to make sure that it stays within the acceptable range for an inverter. And most inverters do have a wide tolerance setting. The SolarArc and the Briggs Stratton inverters have this wide tolerance setting, but you still want to be within a few hertz of 60 hertz with a loaded generator.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. The PV array, right, coming in, DC coupled in the PV array. We have also the battery backup as well with the rapid shutdown button. Our battery is right there on the right-hand side. How does a whole home transfer switch work? There's a couple ways that we do this with generators. One is the signal to transfer. So what this means is that the generator itself is actually having monitoring mains. And what that does is if the generator sees that the 240 volt from grid has gone down, it will send a signal to start. It'll send a signal to transfer on the automatic transfer switch. The automatic transfer switch will transfer, and then the generator will chug along and start running. Another way is to do this is that both the generator and the automatic transfer switch are both monitoring grid, and if both of them see grid drop out, then the transfer switch will transfer, and then the generator will start up, and you're off to the races. How we do this, though, in our application for this topic of this talk is going to be 2-wire signal to start. The automatic transfer switch really is not really there, right? Because the automatic transfer switch is built into the inverter. The inverter is monitoring mains and the battery level, right? The state of charge of the batteries. And only when the batteries drop, or perhaps maybe the inverter is being called upon to power heavy loads, can we use the 2-wire signal to start from the inverter to start up the generator. So in a lot of cases, especially our inverter, you have to get into the generator controller and disable auto mains failure, because the generator may continue still to see grid, especially if you've relocated the grid sense to the backed up loads panel.
Hey, Daniel,
Yes.
So those are some great points on the auto main sensing. We had a couple of questions that came in that are I think, important to answer and clarify. So we might have said things that made the impression that you can't use solar and generators together. That's absolutely not true. So I'm going to read some questions, and Daniel and I are happy to answer these questions. So first, Rob writes, solar plus generator together can be more than C/2. How is this handled? And Daniel, if you don't mind, I'll just give a quick answer to this. Rob, yes, absolutely. You could have a generator power and solar power combining to deliver more than C/2 to your batteries, but this is handled by the inverter. So both our inverter and the SolarArc inverters and most other inverters offer a global charging rate that is set by the inverter, and that means from all sources combined. So for instance, on our inverter, you could set your charging rate of the batteries on the DC side to be exactly C/2. And then any solar power that comes in from the inverter will be directed to loads, and then if there's additional power, to charge the batteries. If the solar power is not enough, that means that those batteries will be draining. And if those batteries got drained enough that they started up the generator, it would use the solar power coming in and the generator AC signal to charge the batteries, but not exceeding that global charge rate. You also have the ability to independently set a charge rate coming from solar and a charge rate coming from an AC source like a generator. So there's not a concern that just because the generator starts up, the batteries will charge too quickly because solar is available, etc. So don't worry about that. That is a settable feature. And if you need help setting that, feel free to give our tech support a call or just reach out to training-oxnard@basco.com. We'll give that training email here in a minute. There's another question that came in from Dan, and this is the one I wanted you to answer. Dan says, did I hear this right? You are not allowing generator backup operation and solar power, PV power concurrently? Daniel, the answer is
no, you can have them both. The point I was trying to make there is that if you have a DC coupled solar, right? You have solar coming in DC, and I believe this is a great example here. We have solar coming in DC, and this DC is going to run through charge controllers and charge up the batteries over here. What I was trying to articulate here is that these systems have just one generator input. And a lot of times,
same with the solar, Daniel. So good
same with
point.
the solar,
Yes.
yeah. So a lot of times people will use this generator port to AC couple solar. So say I come out to a house that already has existing microinverters or an existing string inverter. I'm not going to, touch any of that. I'm simply going to use this generator input. And as far as the solar or inverter is concerned, it's just AC coming in. It doesn't know that if it's coming from a generator or from a solar. And so what we have to do is be careful here, because we can't have both AC coupled solar and generator landed on the same port, because there's a possibility of the AC coupled solar backfeeding the generator. So what we want to do is isolate them. So in a perfect world, you would have DC coupled solar and generator, no problem, you can combine those. But if you do come across a site that has AC coupled solar and a generator, we need to be able to isolate those either through interlocking breakers or a manual transfer switch, so that we're not having both connected together at the same time. Nathan, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a good point, and I will add to it that for this reason, right? So there's one more option. So you could use a transfer switch. You could lock out the generator. Additionally, with a Solarc, you can do your AC coupling on the load side as well. And so Solarc has details in their manual about AC coupling on the load side. Just keep in mind that when that generator is running, so you'll want to set up that Solarc properly to do that. You should have a lockout module to prevent the AC coupled solar from backfeeding the generator, right? And so that's a point Daniel is making as well. We've got one gen port, right? If we use that gen port for AC coupled solar, then you might want a transfer switch if you're going to do that. You could also, yes, it's more permitting work, go up on the roof and remove those micro inverters and just bring in DC coupled solar. But if you've already maxed out your DC coupled solar, you might want to bring AC coupled solar in. The Solarc 15K, for instance, takes 19.2 kilowatts of AC coupled solar simultaneously as 19 kilowatts of DC coupled solar. If you have those both and you still want a generator for backup, one, you've got an expensive system on your hands, but one of the things you can do is you can AC couple through the load port. They don't recommend AC coupling at 19.2 kilowatts if you're going to do that. Yeah. So it's probably more than you want, but if you have trouble doing that, reach out to us and we can walk you through the different options. So absolutely, AC coupled solar and generators can be combined. It's just more complicated. And definitely with DC coupled solar and generators, it's a much easier combination.
No, and I'm glad that question came up, because this, I think, if with our 7 minutes left here, this is the kind of question that I think a lot of people are facing. And these are the kind of topics that we wanted to address. Like Nathan mentioned, that those microinverters are looking for grid, and they're going to latch on to whatever grid signal they see. And if you got a generator like a Briggs Stratton generator that's producing a nice, clean sine wave, it's going to latch onto it. Recognizing we're running short on time, I'm going to keep going pretty quick through this, everyone, but keep the questions coming. Again, automatic generator start is what's going to start the battery. It's a normally open on our generators. So that's what our inverter is capable of, either normally open, controlling a normally open or a normally closed generators for ours. Make sure we don't undersize the inverter like I talked about, or oversize it as well, where the You might be calling upon a large generator to power a small inverter. We might have a big, large inverter that's calling upon a small generator to power it as well. Must have two-wire start, must be approved for unattended operation. May understand, though, that the generator may start on its own exercise cycles. So a lot of times I leave the generator up to do its exercise cycles. Some of the inverters can do the exercise cycles through the inverter ability. This is where we would run the generator into the Simplify inverter. This is where we would land two-wire signal to start on our generator side, pins 4 and 5. What you see on the left is our larger generators. The right is our stand-up generators. Air-cooled generators, right? So these are not liquid-cooled generators. We absolutely do have liquid-cooled generators. It's our commercial generators on the far right. And what I like about these generators is that they're gas, either natural gas or propane. So unlike a portable generator, which probably has gasoline in it, it's not going to gum up the carburetor and not start on you when you actually need to use it. We have what's known as NG max. That means our generators actually produce what they're rated for on both propane and natural gas. We adjusted our ignition timing, the intake and exhaust manifolds, so that if we sell you an 18K generator, it's 18K on natural gas or on propane. A lot of people, when they're sold a certain generator, it's rated on propane. The problem is a lot of people have natural gas and not necessarily propane at their house. Definitely made some improvements. We have a very aggressive warranty on the generators. We understand that, you know, there's parts, there's pieces, but there's also your labor and also your miles. So we understand that it takes money to service these things, and we want to stand behind our warranty as well. We've simplified some of our automatic transfer switches. Now, you may not need an automatic transfer switch if you're combining a generator and an energy storage system together. But if you're doing just a generator, you're going to need an automatic transfer switch. We've had a lot of different lineups, and we've kind of simplified it. One way we've done that is by having what's known as Symphony Choice. So this is one of our lockout modules that can drop out modules either automatically as soon as a loss of utility, or it can drop off loads based on the load that's the generator is seeing from the backed up loads. Make sure you put the generator far, 5 feet from any opening in the buildings. We talked about this earlier with carbon monoxide poisoning. I want to see, a lot of people who do energy storage systems aren't plumbers, right? But if you start doing generators, you're going to have to start learning how to run pipe, learning how to run gas pipe, get the threader out of the truck, right? And make sure that you're sizing your fuel properly. It's just as important as electrical sizing. Make sure you do your drip legs properly. Yes, go ahead.
How would you do that, right? How would you check your pressure, right? With a simple manometer, right? And so that should be something in your arsenal if you're a generator installer. If you're getting into these, you would want to make sure that you've got it there, right? Manometer, test port, exactly. Daniel, Jason brought up a great issue with one of the explanations we were giving, and I wanted to just read it out loud. So one of the issues with doing a transfer switch or a manual toggle, if you're using the generator port on an inverter as both a generator port and AC coupled solar, is if you're going to switch between them, you need to reconfigure the gen port.
Exactly.
And Jason, I really appreciate you bringing that up. It's a detail that we're kind of glossing over here. But keep in mind, if you're doing something more complicated like that, like using the gen port for both AC coupled solar and for a gen port, you're going to have to change the generator port configuration each time you switch fuel sources. So this would really only be a good option if you're doing something like a portable generator. And I know Daniel's going to talk about that. For that reason, I wanted to bring up the fact that you can AC couple through the loads port. The downside to AC coupling through the loads port is you lose some of the telemetry information with how much power you're generating from your AC coupled solar source. So thanks for making us get into the details, Jason. I know we might not have enough time to get through all the topics, but I think it was important to bring that up. So thank you, Jason.
Absolutely. And that might be another argument, is just remove the micros, sell them on eBay, and and just DC couple the solar and bring it on down the roof.
Which is more efficient anyway, right? A DC coupled solar array is a better way to bring in that power from solar.
When you're coupling, not just in general, but also especially when we're talking about generators as well. There's a generator there. A lot of times we use a twist lock plugs on the outside. A lot of times you may think of this as just interlocking breakers, right? Don't use the portable to actually charge the batteries, but just use an interlocking breaker. Just give the energy storage system a rest. And that's something I didn't bring up at all either, is that you don't necessarily have to have the generator charge the batteries. You could just have the generator take over all of the loads in the home. Recognize you're not going to be able to charge the batteries, but that is possible with some interlocking breakers, and you could be able to do that as well. And I think I might have that shown here. DC, 1 minute left, everyone, so we're getting there to the end. DC coupled, right? Grid, meter main, backed up loads, and with 2-wire signal to start. And we got a nice midnight solar combiner here. AP Smart System Rapid Shutdown. We have an AP Smart Rapid Shutdown transmitter built into our inverter. This is the one I think you were looking at earlier, Nathan. I think I need to put in a disconnect right here in between the meter can and the Solarc.
Yes, you are supposed to have a fuse disconnect, but we mentioned that last week in our Solarc training, so no problem.
Yeah, brilliant, right? No backed up loads. Everything's backed up here, right? Everything's downstream of that Solarc as well.
All backed up loads, a whole home backup.
Whole home backed up, yeah. Off grid is something definitely we can do. There's no grid here. This is a whole home backup. This is a whole home power here, essentially, with that as well. And here's
Daniel. Can you answer this question on Briggs generators offering extended warranties?
Yeah, so there's a 6-year standard warranty, and essentially, if you pay extra, you can get the 10-year warranty. And that may talk to one of our, if you're interested in becoming a generator dealer, let us know. Our email's coming up. We can hook you up. I believe that might be a dealer exclusive. So when you do purchase these the generators, like a lot of products, you just purchase an extended warranty. And that's why there's either a 6 or a 10-year warranty as well. This is what I was mentioning with the interlocking breakers. So the generator isn't connected to the inverter. There is no 2-wire signal to start. Essentially, in this example, what would happen is if you see that you have that nice energy track app, you know the batteries are starting to get low, you wheel out the generator. This is grid. This is non-backed up. This is backed up loads. So what would be happening is that if you are backing up loads through the inverter, great, you're feeding power back up here. The batteries are starting to get low. Do an interlocking breaker up top here, and then disconnect the inverter from the powering the home. Let the solar have a chance to recharge the batteries, or perhaps even they're dead and you got to wait, and then go ahead and use the generator temporarily to take the burden off of the energy storage system, or let the energy storage system have a rest. Now,
so Daniel,
yes.
I just want to point out to you and to those that are on here, we are 1 minute over. So Thank you everyone for attending. Daniel, I'm going to let you finish up for those that can stay. And if you have questions that didn't get answered, if you put them in the Q&A, we will type out answers when we send out this slide deck. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, we'll have it coming up really quick.
And yes, sir, we unfortunately can't unmute you, so I'm going to have to ask you to use the Q&A to ask your question.
You could potentially have the portable generator coming in. Now, make sure you talk carefully with sales application engineers and understand you might have to manually start and stop that generator as well. We can parallel up our inverters to provide whole home backup. We're made in America. Stand behind our products. We're safe. If anybody's on here and wants to be part of our installation program, scan that QR code. We have cash back per battery rebates available. We'll promote you on our maps and also put you in our newsletter. If you're here for NABCEP, that's the email. training@simplifiedpower.com. Email training@simplifiedpower.com. We'll go ahead and email you your NABCEP certificates. I hope to see everybody in Raleigh come to support the NABCEP Continuing Education Conference as well. We do have some other promotions going on right now. $1,000 rebate on our first energy storage system. Scan that QR code to get signed up for that or to apply for that. Additionally, I already meant the self-content, self-generation incentive program. Please scan this QR code if you can give us a survey, right? We really want to be better at these talks and present this material in a better fashion. Don't hold back your criticism. We'll take it constructively. Scan this QR code, fill out the survey so we can better meet your needs as well. Again, if you're looking for NABCEP, it's training@simplifiedpower.com. Nathan, thank you. Is there any last questions before we end the webinar?
I just want to answer one from Lynn. A lot of people have said thank you for the presentation. So thank you for your attendance, everyone. Lynn, you asked, what is the time to order and receive a generator? That partly depends on where you are. We have hundreds of generators dealers throughout the world and the country. And so check our map of where to buy. And we can get you connected with a generator dealer. If you need to contact us, then please go ahead and send us an email. Our training email is there. It's training@simplifypower.com or training-oxnard at basco.com. So you can use either of those two emails. It'll get right to Daniel and I, and we can connect you. Just let us know where you are, and we'll put you in touch with a dealer. Everyone, thank you. Daniel, great presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nathan. Take care, everyone.